Great. Hello, everyone. I would like to go ahead and start today's event. Greetings, my name is Kelsey Stewart. I'm coming from Fab Cafe Tokyo. It's a great pleasure to introduce this event with you all today. First, I would like to talk a little bit about YouFab, the Global Creative Awards for 2021. Yes. So YouFab is an award that started in 2012 as a contest, mostly for laser cutting, actually. And at that time, digital fabrication machines such as laser cutters and 3D printers, they were kind of seen as tools that could improve the world or improve society, maybe even change the world. And at that time, we quickly found out that actually it's not just the machines that are doing these kind of actions, but it's the people behind these machines. So YouFab as well, even though it started out as a laser cutting contest, it slowly started to morph into something that was facing society, for example, with this kind of, definition that, sorry, I realize that my screen is not working well. Here we go. Yes, one moment. Apologies for the technical issue. Go. Okay. Yes. Great. So with the definition, sorry for that, that fab is a creativity that transcends and combines the digital and physical realms. So YouFab aims to discover creators with innovative ideas and form a global creator community while connecting creators with companies to increase meaningful collaborations. Here with me today, we have two guests joining us to discover and dive deeply into the YouFab theme for this year, which is democratic experiments. First, I would like to say hello to Ariana Koch. Ariana, are you here with us today?
I am.
Oh, great. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Great to see you and great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Next, I would also like to say hello to Alex Ikenouchi, who is joining us today from Panasonic.
Hey, Kelsey.
Hi, Alex.
How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Excellent. So moving right along to introducing YouFab. So YouFab has been run by and created by Fab Cafe, which is a creative and international community with physical headquarters in 4 locations here in Japan, including Tokyo, Kyoto, Hida, and Nagoya, as well as in Europe, in Toulouse, France, Strasbourg, France, and Barcelona, Spain, as well as across Asia, including Bangkok, Taipei, Hong Kong, and Kuala Lumpur. We also have a location in Monterrey, Mexico. What all of these locations share is their vision for having a cafe as an open space, as a place for creative serendipity, where anybody and everybody can come and have a cup of coffee and hopefully experience an opportunity to ask themselves the question, what do you fab? Yes. So as I mentioned before, in 2012, we originally started off as a kind of laser cutting contest, but over the years, we've gone into the directions of fashion and bio, in architecture. Truly, this is an award without a genreless award where people from cross-disciplinary perspectives can also apply. Yes, the past themes and winners have included, for example, in 2020, we had the theme called Contactless by Default, which was developed by Mr. Kei Wakabayashi, who is the chief judge for this year and also the past editor at Wired Japan. In 2019, we had the theme called Conviviality, which is emerging from the space between the old and the new OS. At this time, we had judges including Chiaki Hayashi from Loftwork, Leonard Bartholomew, who is a curator at YCAM, as well as Keiichiro Matsumura, professor of anthropology. Yes. So this year, as I've mentioned, the theme is called Democratic Experiments, which was developed by our new chief judge, Asa Ito. I'll just read this statement for you from Ms. Asa Ito. So who are the stakeholders in the creation you make? We look forward to works that attempt to engage in dialogues that transcend the boundaries of species, space, and time. Direct dialogue may not be possible with some stakeholders. Hence, we are also excited to see experiments and communication methods that seek how to interact with such beings. It does not have to be a universal solution, so please give us the best solution you can derived from your locality. We do not limit the format of the work. It can be furniture, food, architecture, vehicles, communities, or services. Actually, we just recently had an event featuring Ms. Asaito as well as members from Casco Land, who are also judges for YouFab this year. At that time, we discussed this theme in great detail alongside Tim Wong, who is the co-founder of Fab Cafe Taipei and Loftwork Taiwan. If you're interested in the contents of this event, you can actually visit the Fab Cafe TV YouTube channel to see what we were talking about at that time. In the past, we've always had a YouFab Special Award. For example, in 2019, Panasonic was the sponsor who developed the title of the Next STEAM Prize. The theme at this time was looking for works which have technology design for fostering new discoveries and creativity. In 2018, we had the Lion Prize from the Lion Corporation. At this time, the theme was Merge, which is a future where work and life merge together. And also in 2017, we had the Haptic Design Prize, which we hoped to collect works which connect us to the world around us through our sense of touch. In particular, in these special awards, I always love to talk about, for example, the Third Thumb, which was the winner for the Haptic Design Award, which was developed by Danny Claude from the United Kingdom. This is a really interesting 3D printed thumb, where basically it's a kind of extension of your hand where it's connected to a sensor which goes into your boots, and actually you can have a physical moving and reactive third thumb attached to yourself. I know that Danny is continuing to do research with this product, including doing some kind of neuropsychological research on the effects of the brain from having this kind of new limb attached to the human body. Yes, for this year, we're going to be having the special prize called the Panasonic Prize. We are hoping to find works that improve society and our lives. So I think that you can see here, yes, at the end, but based on these kind of backgrounds and ideas from Panasonic perspective, we're widely seeking creative ideas and technologies that will, quote, energize the world and make our lives ideal. Yes, so I believe that Alex will actually be describing the Panasonic Center and AkeruE in more detail in his presentation, but basically AkeruE, which is located inside the Panasonic Center in Tokyo, is a creative museum dedicated to fostering children's creative learning experiences, not just children, adults as well, through seeing, making, and communicating. They opened actually just last year, April 3rd in 2020, and they are supported by Panasonic and the creative company Loftwork, which is the parent company of Fab Cafe. I've also visited AkeruE before, and it's a very exciting, explorative space. I find that it's quite engaging for the people who are coming there, which is, I think, a kind of new and exciting concept, especially in Japan. For people who have visited museums in Japan before, I think you often find that, thank you. So I think you often find that the people who go to these museums, they're in a position of maybe listening or reading or watching the artworks or exhibitions in a kind of passive way. But I think that in AkeruE, what's really special is that it truly engages the people who come there to explore and to find their own eureka as well. So these are some images of the inside. For example, they have a studio where you can do stop motion video. They have a DIY space where people can do high spec and low spec making. At the bottom right, you can see some of the works which children have been creating from scrap materials. Yes. And so this year, I would just like to briefly introduce the 4 judges for YouFab 2021. First is Asa Ito, the chief judge. She is a director at the Future of Humanity Research Center at the Institute of Innovative Research inside Tokyo Institute of Technology. We also have two members, Roel and Fiona, from Cascoland. Cascoland is an international Amsterdam-based network of artists, architects, designers, and performers. Third, we have Kampire Bahana, who is a DJ and a founding member of the Nyeg Collective. This is actually her second year joining us as a YouFab judge. And then finally, we have Ariana Tsukara, who is a curator and editor. Yes. So the YouFab 2021 schedule. So we've already kicked off and we are currently in the phase of accepting applications for YouFab 2021. The application deadline for this year is going to fall on October 31st. And then in late November, we plan to have our online judging committee where we will decide the winners for YouFab this year. The results will be announced in January of 2021, and then we plan to host an awards ceremony, exhibition, and other events during February of, 2022 of next year. Apologies for that. Yes. For the prizes themselves, we have 4 types of prizes. There is the grand prize, the first prize, student prize, and then there are several finalists. For the grand prize, you receive a trophy and $2,000 US. For first prize, you receive a trophy and $1,000 US. The student prize receives a certificate with $500 US, and several finalists will also receive certificates of recognition. The questions that we're asking to the potential applicants of YouFab, including asking if the work is innovative, is it aware of the audience? What is the quality of the experience for the work itself? How is the theme interpreted? And does it hold the fab spirit, and is it open-minded? From volume 1 of this event series, we were also asking Ito and Fiona and Roel from Cascoland what are the kind of points that they're looking for in YouFab works this year. So for example, some of the important elements included timing and listening with intention. Ito in particular pointed out the necessity to invent a new language, as the language that we are currently using is oftentimes ignoring the people who are in a minority, for example. This language is not created with people in the minority in mind. I know that also Roel was pointing out that sometimes informal knowledge can be just as important, if not more important, than formal knowledge. And sometimes with this kind of theme, there can be some kind of anxiety being held by the creators. And they also wanted to point out that creativity and art can empower us for this anxiety to find out what we can do about it. They want to create some kind of opportunities through these works to feel a sense of responsibility towards the challenge or the problem. And for example, they also are looking for works which might make visible a challenge or a problem. Yes. A little bit more about what Ito and Cascoland were saying. For example, Asa was mentioning that she's looking for very local solutions. She wants to know who are the stakeholders of these different works and what are the best solutions for your local communities. From Cascoland, we heard that they are looking for works where they can learn about how others are engaging. And they said that they would like to be surprised by the unexpected and have some kind of encounters with these surprising works. Yes. And finally, earlier I mentioned that winners will also receive a trophy. So for example, you can see here the 3D printed trophy that the grand prize and first prize winner receives. So, so without further ado, I would like now to introduce our first speaker, which is Ariana Koch. Ariana, are you here with us? Great. So I'm just going to introduce you briefly. Nice, thank you for joining us. So Ariana Koch is an acknowledged international expert and pioneer in the field of arts, science, and technology, and artist residencies. Ariana initiated, designed, and directed the acclaimed Arts at CERN program from 2009 to 2015 in Geneva, Switzerland. Today, she works worldwide as an independent strategic advisor, creative partner, and consultant on many new high-profile initiatives, such as the new Cavendish Arts Science program at Cambridge University, UK, as well as working with high-profile established organizations seeking new directions, such as the Exploratorium in San Francisco in the United States. Great. So without further ado, Ariane, please feel free to share your screen and begin your presentation.
So thank you for that lovely introduction, Kelsey, and it's great to join you all here. I'm just going to very quickly whiz through what I do and what I love doing. I really believe in creative collisions, colliding things which seem diverse and not in each other's realms. And I completely, my whole career has been dedicated to process and discovery, creative process and discovery, and the joy of the imagination to take us further and beyond boundaries. This picture is of a particle collision, so that gives you a clue. I founded the Arts at CERN program at CERN, Geneva, which is the world's largest particle physics laboratory. And I started the collisions between artists and scientists, which continues to this day, which is wonderful. So that's an extraordinary organization, CERN, with over 12,200 scientists, 110 different nationalities, 70 different institutes from different countries working together for a common goal to find out how the universe is created. And for me, physicists and artists are the same in some ways. They're twin souls because they're looking at how and why our universe came into existence and thinking beyond paradigms to get further knowledge. The program has created things, for example, on the far left, you can see Iris van Herpen's Spring-Summer collection, Magnetic Motions, which was inspired by her visit to CERN for just a day. It created this, and that dress is inspired by the way magnets and magnetism work. The middle film was a film dance opera created at CERN, which has won many prizes. That was part of the Arts at CERN program as well, by Ruben van Leer from the Netherlands. And the final image you see is of a piece called Quantum, created by Jojoba, the Swiss dancer during his, actually after his residency. And it's inspired by quantum physics, obviously. I've also created a program called Earth, Water, Sky, which resonates very strongly with today's theme and with YouFab and what YouFab is doing. Is the prize this year for somebody to win a residency program in Venice is connected with geology and the idea of deep time, that human time is very limited and we should be thinking about deep time. The first prize was actually won in 2019, and the underwater artist Emma Critchley won it to come to Venice to work with Carlo Babanti, a leading climatologist who he collects ice cores from around the world, from the glaciers, and each ice core contains a bubble which can show how, well, actually contains the chemistry, the exact chemistry of the Earth's atmosphere at any particular time, even going back to 2.3 million years. And he's creating a library of ice in Antarctica, so future generations can look and learn from this using the technologies as they evolve as we face our climate emergency. Emma worked at the world's deepest diving pool. I was the producer on this project, Y40 at Padua. And as you can see, it's kind of like an ice core. And that's what's so beautiful about the artistic imagination. It joins up things which seem unrelated. This is some of the projects we did together. And this is an image from her film, which was world premiered at the Venice Architecture Biennale this year. And it was shot underwater at Y40 with dancers dropped in the water and choreographing movements which echo the world's kind of thermal currents, and making the link between the body of ice and the body of the human, through exploration through water, and the piece is called Witness. I'm also a curator. I curate exhibitions like Entangle, Physics and the Artistic Imagination. Physics is really inspirational for artists like Davide Caiola, who has used drones and actually technology developed by physics to create this extraordinary piece where a machine, which is created by a machine, actually looking. So this is what a machine sees when it looks at a tree. Sarah Zay is another amazing artist who uses the detritus and the stuff thrown away in life to create artworks, whether it's a Q-tip or a postcard. And this piece is called Dark Matter, which is a reflection on the unknown. There's a book also, which you can read if you want to get further deep dive into physics and how it really can inspire art and the way we're all connected. Another exhibition I'm doing is called Reef, Real Feelings, Motion and Technology, which I co-curated with Sabine Himmelsbach and Angelique Spanix. Opened in Switzerland and it's now in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and explores how the new technologies are engaging, working, and sometimes working against our emotions and creating new ones. This piece was premiered in the show and is in the show also in Eindhoven. It's called Terminal Beach. It's a Kaku robot, furry one, in a video, chopping down what looks like the last tree on Earth. And it's a meditation really on who programmed that robot to do that. Is the robot its own entity? And it asks questions about agency, human agency, natural agency, machine agency. This piece by Lucy McRae, which was an original commission. She's a design futurist. She is speculating here with this piece called Solitary Survival Raft and saying, if we get to the end of the world, and only technology is left, what will it feel like? What will a world be like without human touch? And it really makes you think about that very, very deeply. Other things I've been involved with are the backlight related realities trionali, which was last year. And you can see this extraordinary photograph. It looks like science fiction. It was actually created out of scrap. So that amazing machine, which looks 1970s retro, was actually made out of scrap. And the photograph was actually shot entirely by moonlight. So that shows again the imagination and how we can go further through the beauty of the imagination, which I think is what makes us humans special. I also work at the Exploratorium San Francisco, which is got a very, very similar mission to AkeruE, and it would be great to talk about that further. I'm an associate there, and I just work with them to make them to engage and think further. And as Kelsey said, I've also been advising a new, wonderful, exciting physics and art program at the Cavendish laboratories at the University of Cambridge, and they will be announcing very shortly the winner of their first residency. So stand by for that, because I think there are going to be some really interesting projects coming out of that particular program. And this year I'm working at the Venice Architecture Biennale. I've been made a creative director of the virtual pavilion, the virtual Italian official pavilion. It's called City X Venice, and Witness will be screened inside that pavilion, which is very exciting. So that's a little bit about me, and I very much believe that knowledge is actually limited, and imagination embraces the entire world, as Albert Einstein said. So thank you, and I'm really looking forward to seeing and hearing what's said next. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for that really wonderful presentation. So next, I would like to introduce Alex Ikenouchi. Alex, are you here with us? Wonderful.
Hi there.
Great. So Alex is the director at the Panasonic Center of Tokyo, also brand strategic division in the brand strategic division for Panasonic Corporation. In 1992, Alex joined Matsushita electric industrial company, which became Panasonic in 2008. In his career at Panasonic, he has worked for several corporate projects, including creating Panasonic's first future concept house, the EHII house, and various corporate pavilions and expositions. After working in the advertising division at the Panasonic head office from 2008 to 2012, he engaged in global projects at Panasonic North America in the United States and Panasonic Latin America in Brazil. In 2014, Alex was appointed as the head of the trade show and event promotion team in the brand communication division in Japan. And from 2019, he was assigned his current position as the director of the Panasonic Center, Tokyo. Great. Thank you again so much for joining us today.
Hi, Kelsey.
Great. And you can begin your presentation when you are ready.
All right. So first of all, thank you so much for having us, Panasonic, today. I'm really excited to be with you. So let me share my presentation. So you see the screen? Good.
Yes, we can see your screen very well.
All right. So let me start from introducing who we are, who Panasonic is. And Panasonic was founded by Konosuke Matsushita. He's the founder of Panasonic a century ago, back in 1918, when he was only 23 years old, a young man. And then when he was 20, 21, 22, Japan is really, there was, at that time, Japan was really poor country. Living is not easy as we are doing now. And then, life is not so convenient and comfort. But when, meet with the kind of electricity, he strongly believed the power of electricity or electrification, and he believed also that making kind of electric home appliances, by making those home appliances, he can change the world. He can change the world more better place. That's what the reason. That was the reason he started his business. And then right-hand side on the on top, that is the Panasonic's first product. We called attachment plug for lighting bulb. So by introducing this, he started his vision, to enlighten and enrich the life. That was the beginning of Panasonic. And then currently, a better life, a better world is the Panasonic slogan. And then contributing to the development of society through our business. That's what that is our DNA. And let me introduce why we are joining YouFab. And as we all experiencing, although the future is really unpredictable, the future is really, we couldn't foresee. But Panasonic's philosophy is to make life and society ideal. And we would like to, to realize that vision, we need to really work with the various stakeholders. To do that, Panasonic, deeply sympathizes with the YouFab this year's theme, democratic experiments, which is a democratic experimental activity that faces not only related to the human, but also whole universe that I thought include, like a global environment, energy, that type of thing. So we see sincerely addressing the complex social issues represented by the SDGs. Therefore, we joined the YouFab and established the Panasonic Prize. And then we are working with this YouFab award this year with 3 teams, and then these are the 2 teams from our R&D. The first team is Panasonic Laboratory Tokyo, based in Tokyo, and then PLT was established in 2016, and their research focus area is of IoT, AI, and robotics, so on. And second team from Panasonic is Auglab. Auglab was also established in 2019. And then through the development of augmentation technology, they think they will be contributing to well-being society. That's what they're kind of digging. And the last entity is Panasonic Center Tokyo, where I am working, and I am currently sitting inside of the center. Location is Ariake, Tokyo, Bayside. Established in 2002, and the number of visitors in total is more than 12 million from literally around the world. And also, let me introduce a little bit about our new facility called AkeruE, the Panasonic Creative Museum. So Kelsey kindly also already introduced about AkeruE, so I'm going to briefly introduce. So concept is a museum where Eureka turns into reality. So Eureka is a kind of ancient Greek word. The meaning is kind of discovery. So when you read the Eureka from the backward, it turns AkeruE. So that's really interesting concept, and we really focusing on discover something. And then the background why we established AkeruE facility is, as you see here, the world is really changing, and then global issues is really complicated, represented by SDGs and VUCA era. However, in this situation, let me go back to the philosophy of our founders, Konosuke Matsushita's quote. So this is really interesting story I'd like to introduce. So he is saying, if someone asks you what Matsushita Electric, which is Panasonic, making, and respond, Matsushita Electric is a manufacturer of people. We also make electric appliances. That's really interesting and strong quote word to me. So we are the manufacturer, but we make people before making product. That's what he said. So that's kind of philosophy is driving us to create that type of educational facility inside of Panasonic. And the second background is like education in the area of education and learning is also changing, as Ariana introduced. Really, art thinking or art factor is important to make something or produce something. So we really focus on STEAM. STEAM also contains science, technology, engineering, and mathematics as well. And also creative learning situation is really kind of changing. So as MIT lab professor Resnick mentioned, children's future happiness and success depends on really how creative is really key. So creative is also equal, running. So the positioning AkeruE is really combining these 3 factors, like science museum factor. We have art museum, a lot of art type of installation we have. And also creative atelier workshop type of factor we have. And then those combining three factors, we established AkeruE, and then we called here Creative Museum. And then inside of AkeruE, a lot of interesting STEAM-based installation. So not only just seeing the installation, the visitor can touch and try these installations and feel the element of STEAM. And once they are interested in some part, how that is working and what is this, so they can dig in to more in detail the element of like sometimes science, sometimes art, sometimes music, so those 16, we have 16 exhibits allow visitors to disassembling, understand, and experience more detail of each element. Okay. And then also, oh, let me go back. So also here that we call the area Cosmos, the kids can create using the kind of materials like CDs or ribbons or cables or the buttons. So using these kind of recyclable materials, they can create their own imagination and make it real and display on this table. So we really believe, not just thinking, experiencing, but kind of doing, making something, creating is really key to survive in this complicated world. And not only physical creation like YouTubers or video making, this type of application kids can try. And also fabrication, yes, we have. And at Tecnito, the area, we have the latest digital fabrication machines like 3D printers and laser cutters, as well as the many machine tools. So here, they can make their own imagination real. All right, so that's pretty much the reason why Panasonic is joining the YouFab this year and what we're doing. Thank you so much. So back to Kelsey.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. So I believe, Ariana, are you also here with us now? Wonderful. Thank you for coming back. So I'd like to go ahead and go into the crosstalk session of our event today. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Okay. Wonderful. Can you all see my slides here? Mm-hmm. Great. All right. So thank you again for both of your fantastic presentations. I've been taking notes and I've been learning a lot. In particular, I was very interested to hear about Panasonic's founding member talking about manufacturing people, and then also we make appliances as well. I thought that was really fascinating. Right. I also was very interested about the deep time and geology project, which Ariana was bringing up, and maybe we can talk about that cases through this crosstalk as well. So my first question to each of you is, what did you think about each other's presentation? Do you have any questions for each other or any points that came up that you thought was particularly inspiring given the YouFab theme this year? Maybe we can start with Ariana.
Yes, I mean, I was just really struck and fascinated by AkeruE as a really living, creative museum, which is encouraging creativity and imagination in so many different ways. I was also struck that you used a lot of astrophysics terms to delineate the different parts of AkeruE, Cosmos, for example, Photon. And I wondered why you did that. I mean, I kind of know the answer, but I'd love to hear it from you. Yeah.
So the reason we are doing establishing a career is, I mean, in the past, actually back in 2006, we made a similar kind of facility for kids education called Wissopia. Wisu means mathematics and science in Japanese. At that time, we really focusing on, this area. However, in these days, mathematics and sciences are very important. We should, learn. However, as I mentioned, these are not maybe good enough to survive this, complicated society, and art factor and more like a close boundary kind of learning, creative learning is really key, for the innovation. That's what we strongly believe. So we kind of reform the concept, and then establish the AkeruE, and actually this spring, April.
So the name for Cosmos, for the room where the children can use materials, is there a reason why you call that room Cosmos?
I mean, starting from we discussed about kind of naming, and the Eureka, how do I pronounce Eureka? Yeah, is a kind of Greek word. So so maybe interesting in sticking kind of Greek word. So that was the beginning. And also Cosmo or universe type of thing that's really we wanted kids to think about. Yeah. So that's maybe the reason behind we named those area.
I see. Very cool. Oh, I'm seeing, can you guys see my slide okay, by the way?
Yep.
Okay, great. So yeah, and Alex, do you have any questions or comments about the presentation contents from Ariana?
Wow, that was really interesting artwork or activities you have made. Unfortunately, I couldn't have a chance to visit CERN, art at CERN. That was really interesting. So question is, why you thought, you doing the program at CERN, not the kind of museum or, more close to the metropolitan area? And what was the kind of the most challenging part when you done, at CERN?
Thank you very much for your question, Alex. Why at CERN? It's because it's one of the places on the planet which is at the forefront of knowledge and creating new knowledge about how the universe was created. As you know, they've got the world's largest machine, which is the Large Hadron Collider, which is 27 kilometers in circumference, where they smash particles together to recreate the moments a few seconds after the universe came into existence. And that in itself is mind-boggling. When you think of that, that is just amazing. So for me, I just thought, oh my goodness, of all the places on the planet, that is the one to create an arts program for, because it is so, it's so much at the heart of how and why we all exist in our universe. So I couldn't think of anywhere better. So the challenges of setting it up at the world's largest science laboratory. Oh my goodness, how many days have we got to go through that? I mean, that's a long and complicated story. But I suppose I'll just pick one of the many. And actually, there's something very similar to your founder when he said manufacture of people. I always said that the arts program actually wasn't an arts program so much as a cultural change program, and that it was changing the perceptions of the scientists, the people, the community within the laboratory. So we've got something in common there, because any interaction touches and creates, particularly art, for example, and particularly colliding art and science, really changes people's perceptions. So the idea of manufacture of people, as in changing sensibilities, I think I strongly identify with. And some of the sensibilities right at the beginning I had to change were, for example, some scientists said, "This is a waste of time. You're distracting us from our work. How could you do this?" And so I was persuading them through the work which the artists did, how it actually contributed to their work and how it contributed to their sense of the world as not being just science, but beyond that, that we all are part of a massive universe of possibilities, which after all, science and physics opens up itself. But they're so focused on data and particularity that sometimes scientists forget that because they're so driven by their particular methodology.
Mm-hmm. Really, really fascinating perspective. I recall when I was doing research about your work at the Arts in CERN program, you had mentioned in a podcast, I believe it was the Artisan, that actually whenever you proposed this residency, that you did not require the artist to create output. Am I understanding that point correctly? And instead focusing on the process itself. Is there a reason why you decided to pivot the program in that way?
Yes, of course it made my life amazingly difficult, because then you have to raise funds on the prospect that there's going to be no output. But I really believe in the process being key. And I made that stance actually as a political stance, because I believed that we'd lost trust in artists to create and make. And so I did it as a kind of a rhetorical device, because I knew that any artist who came to CERN would create and make. So by saying there was no defined output, I was being naughty in a way, because I knew that they would create and make something, and I was making a very strong political point. The program's since evolved since then. I mean, I left in 2015 and it continues, but it does have much more production attached to it as well as process, which is good. I just started it in a particular way because at that particular moment in time, I was really concerned about that. And I also wanted to make the point that artists are a part of fundamental research, just as scientists are, and that fundamental research is absolutely key to human beings progressing in this world, particularly connecting with other beings and other existences. Yeah.
Fascinating. So we have several questions to go through, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to the next question. Here we go. So here we are. So in Chief Judge Asa Ito's statement for this year's theme, she highlights the beginning phase of creation, citing it is important to start with the intention to make things with integrity. So I would like to ask you both the question, maybe starting with Alex. What does making things with integrity mean to you?
Right. I mean, integrity is really important for Panasonic as a manufacturer. And then let me introduce again one of the favorite quote from Konosuke Matsushita, our founder, is that he mentioned, "Don't be afraid of failure. Be afraid of not putting your heart into what you are doing." And when you wanted to put your heart in, three key factors are really important. The first, integrity, and be humble, kind of like a maybe Japanese mind, and also passion. So these three factors are really important when it's to start something. So I think the integrity is really kind of key element to Panasonic when we manufacture something. So that's what we kind of thought. So like a common sense I am feeling from the word integrity.
That's really interesting. Ariane, do you have any comment towards this, towards Alex's reply, but also what you think it means to make things with integrity?
Oh, I thought that was very beautiful, Alex said, and it's something very close to my own heart. Yes, I totally believe in heartfelt and being heartfelt creation and heartfelt direction and points of intention when you're making or creating something. And that does give you a point of integrity, and then you just follow that through with your actions and what you're making, but also thinking as you're doing all those things about the implications for everybody or everything which you are touching in the creation and making of your work. Yeah.
That's very fascinating. So there we are. Wonderful. So we actually skipped a question, so I'd like to go back to it briefly. Apologies for this. And maybe we can also start with Ariane this time. So when you heard this year's YouFab 2021 theme, Democratic Experiments, what did you think of when you connected it to your own experience and work? In other words, what do you consider as the most important elements in this concept of democratic experiments?
Well, it's very much about, first of all, standing at a point of commonality. If you think of physics, physics says we're all created of particles, whether it's the chair I'm sitting on or the hair on my head, and that every hour, we have little mini explosions inside our own bodies, which recreate the moment when the universe was done. So we have these flashes of light when matter and antimatter actually meet inside of us. So that tells you already that we're all connected, that we're all interrelated. And the wonderful thing is we're learning this and accepting this more and more. So democratic experiments, to me, says that all beings, whether we're sentient or not, we all have a interaction with each other. We all have an effect on each other. And we have to be aware of that in whatever we create and make, the implications of that. So that's what democratic experiments says to me. It's not about people. It might lead you to think, oh, it's all about people and governments. No, it's not. And it's all about existences and everything which exists on the planet.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. Yes. I know that recently in the world of design, for example, environment-centered or nature-centered design is starting to come to the forefront, especially in discussions about regenerative cities or regenerative landscapes, these kind of things. So yeah, I think that, having that kind of way of thinking about the world as this kind of complex web of stakeholders is really enlightening for this year's YouFab. Great. I would like to direct the same question to Alex.
All right. So first I heard the theme, democratic experiments. Frankly speaking, I couldn't get it. but through the kind of communication, communicating with the organizer and judges, now I think I can get it. And I thought that theme is really matters, to us Panasonic. I mean, Panasonic philosophy and vision in the future. And we are the kind of manufacturer. As a global manufacturer, Panasonic is making product as well as people, as I mentioned. But the kind of, I think definition of, manufacturing or manufacturer is changing recently. So manufacturing is not only done by the manufacturing company such as Panasonic. And now everybody can be the manufacturer because of the kind of technology evolution, like a 3D printer, those type of thing, internet as well. So experiment, I would say, think, discuss, and try, how manufacturing should be is really matter to us. So rethink, maybe reinvent, manufacturing is really interesting theme we'd like to dig in. And secondly, when we talk about stakeholders, we need to think about people. I mean, human first. That's for sure. But this is not good enough. And then global environment and kind of circulation, energy issue, more like a bacteria or virus type of things. So these are the factors also we need to think about, because we would like to realize a better life, a better world, not only human related. All the stakeholder, we need to rethink, so that's really interesting theme. That's the reason, we joined this YouFab award this year.
Nice. Thank you very much. Yeah. One point that you mentioned that I thought was very poignant is talking about this kind of democratization of making. So these days, people can create, kind of have this small manufacturing plant even from out of their own home. And so, yeah, this is another kind of perspective of this theme, in addition to the web of stakeholders. And what that also means is that we can start seeing new products, new services, new works coming from perspectives of people who may be in a minority, for example. One of the points that Ito made in our last talk was the necessity to create a new language, because the current language is a language which was created for the majority by the majority. And so I think that this kind of democratization of making gives us an opportunity for other voices to be heard, and for other voices for other people to begin creating something from their unique perspective as well. So
definitely, I agree.
So moving right along, this question I think is especially interesting given the kind of perspective of making things with integrity. So the question is, how do you make decisions or overcome friction between various stakeholders during the creation process? How might we consider non-human stakeholders in this process? So I would like to first orient this question towards Ariana.
Yes, that's always the fun question, isn't it? How do we overcome friction? I suppose what I learned at CERN was very much that if you've got this extraordinary laboratory with so many diverse people from so many diverse different countries working together, yes, they all have their own sensibilities and ideas, but how you overcome friction during the creation process is very much about emphasizing the common goal and really talking about that, so uniting in that, and also igniting people's curiosity or reigniting it in case they've shut down and are no longer curious. So it's always about communication, but it's always about the common goal and everybody sharing that. And how we might consider non-human stakeholders in the process. So, for example, the Earth, Water, Sky residency, which I introduced in my talk, and I talked about this year's call is about thinking about deep time. I very much believe that when we make anything, we have to think about how it connects with everything else. So technology, we're always told that technology is new, but it's not, because it's surviving and existing due to the Earth's resources, due to the minerals we're using to make the technology, which goes back deeply within our time. So it's very much we have to embrace and think about time and the effects on the planet when we make a technology, and also think about how it may be reused and recycled when it changes. So that we create a world where when we use something, we can reuse it. And also we're aware of those deep time implications as well as material implications. Yeah.
That's a really fascinating point. Yes. In relation to this concept of time, I know that Asa Ito also mentions, the stakeholders that came before the creation process began. So, for example, humans and non-humans alike who may have already passed away a long time ago could be stakeholders of this process. And of course, in the future, she makes the metaphor that if you were to build a chair for your grandfather, for example, eventually your grandfather or father or family member may, or will pass away. And at that time, who becomes the new stakeholder of that chair in the far into the future? So I think that you're definitely hitting the nail on the head with this reply, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Alex, what do you think? How do we make decisions and overcome friction between various stakeholders in creation process? I'm sure that, in Panasonic, many of the members have a kind of shared vision or a shared mission together as creators of people and products, but, perhaps sometimes there's butting of heads, or perhaps there's sometimes, having to make some pretty difficult judgment calls in the, bringing about of these new products and services. What do you think about this question?
Right. This is really, difficult question. I'm always struggling to find a solution. However, the experience from my job experience, like joining the global kind of project, a lot of people around the world have had a different opinion. So really difficult to come to the kind of common goals, set the goals. However, always when enabled to make a decision, we always go back to our management philosophy, as I mentioned. So we always ask ourselves, is this contributing society, improving lifestyle, and cultivating culture? That is one of our philosophy. So always back to like a corporate vision that maybe help to come to the conclusion between the various stakeholders.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important to continue asking yourself these questions every time you're making these very creative but sometimes tough decisions. That's a really good point.
So when it comes to human stakeholders, that's for sure, yes. We need to consider non-human stakeholders such as global environment, energy, and biodiversity. So that's for sure we really need to consider. And when we discuss about the future project inside of company, one of the kind of question raised by the employee is really interesting. We are kind of getting the resources from the earth in our activities for the long time, consuming the resources. And maybe it's time to kind of return to the earth, from human being side. I don't know what we can do, what we can return, but maybe that, creating the future, I would say sustainability. So that's really interesting thought, what we can return. So I'm trying to kind of think about it.
No, I think, yeah. Ariane, were you about to speak?
Yes, I think that's crucial, Alex, and really important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice. So I'm going to go, here we are. Great. So my next question is, what is the most important thing about using our imagination to create something new? I would like to first pose this question to Ariane.
I always think of the imagination as like the human superpower, which we have. And I think the important thing is to allow it to take you further than you ever dreamt of. That's what I would say in a nutshell. That's one of the most important things. Yeah.
Nice. Alex, what do you think? What is the most important thing about using our imagination to create something new?
Right. Yeah. Imagination is really key to start, something new. I mean, when we, produce, launch product, we always talk about, what is the market, who is the consumer, what is the kind of challenges. But without having imagination, we may sometimes start kind of project, but we struggle, and because there was a lack of imagination or lack of kind of vision will. So always starting from imagination, what we wanted to do, and let's create that imagination happen. So that type of changing the perspective is really important, I think.
And what boundaries can you break? That's always the key. What boundaries can you break by using your imagination? Really allow it to take you to break them. Yeah.
I think, whenever it comes to this, I think children can also be a wonderful inspiration because they don't have these kind of preconceived notions about how things should work or how things must work. And so that's something that I really respect about AkeruE as well, is that the children have so much freedom to learn through creation and to feel confident about the things that they're creating. So I think that it's definitely something that, has been celebrated by Panasonic as well. Yes. So here we go. So this is actually our last question for the evening. So as judges or representatives of the YouFab Award, what is your expectation of entries for this year? And finally, do you have any message for the creators who are considering to apply to YouFab this year? Maybe we can start with Ariane.
Expectation of entries for this year. Gosh, big question again. My expectations are that they will be perhaps thematically looking at everything from how can we connect better, how can we become communities better. Technology does some things, but can there be a way of improving on that and creating much more we rather than me? So I'm looking forward to that. And obviously there will be things looking at global issues from a local perspective as well, whether it's climate change or the climate emergency, or whether it's the pandemic, for example. Anyway, so looking forward to seeing what comes out thematically, but those are the themes I predict will pop up. Message for creators who are considering to apply to YouFab. I always say just be free and playful, because in playfulness, as you were saying, Kelsey, which children have, in playfulness you relax and you go further even if you've got a serious intention. And I think that's really key. And equally, I would say, as I had said earlier, think about the implications of everything you're doing in terms of, and this is what YouFab is saying as well, and think about the implications of every material you're using, and on its effect on the environment and people and other stakeholders. Think really seriously about the non-human stakeholders and the time and space which is involved in working with them. Yeah.
Thank you. Very beautiful statement. Alex, would you like to take us home and reply to this question?
Okay. So in addition to what Ariana mentioned, I like the keyword like a boundary free and playfulness. That's really, I love that word. So I think the YouFab Award is kind of genre-less, genre-free, no categories. So maybe, I don't know, I shouldn't be mentioning about, kind of bias, but if anything, I need to say, maybe one of the theme is our R&D teams is working with like a AI robotics. So that may be the key technologies we are expecting, the interesting idea. And also well-being is kind of the keyword to think about not only human and kind of physical part, more like mental or mindfulness type of part, how to make the ideal by using kind of realizing well-being the situation. That a lot of kind of thought we'd like to see. And maybe for AkeruE, as I introduced, AkeruE is really related to kind of creative education. So in this area, ideas, if we can see, that might be really interesting.
Nice. Excellent. Very good. Yes, I believe that wellness is also another key word for this as well. Whenever we talk about making things with integrity, for example, of course, we have to consider who are we making these things for, but we're also considering why. Why are we making these things? And if we can use these technologies or these new projects in a way that increases someone's well-being, then I think that that is also, how should I say, like an important element of these experiments in democracy. Yes, great. So with this, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. I would like to start to bring the event to a close. Thank you again so much to Alex and Ariane for spending their time with us today and diving into this theme. I just want to make an announcement as well, and maybe Alex, you can make a comment regarding this as well, but actually the winners of YouFab for this year also may have an opportunity to collaborate or work alongside, for example, Auglab and the Panasonic Center. So we're very much so looking forward to seeing the works that will be applied to YouFab this year. And as I mentioned previously, sorry, let me just pull this up. We will be accepting applications for YouFab until October, here we are, 15th. Yes, October 31st. So please check out the website and please check out the award page to see the specifications for the application. It's actually quite simple to apply and it's free. So please check out the website. And yes, with that, I think I would like to draw this event to a close. Thank you again so much. And we look forward to seeing you again during the judgment table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ariana, Kelsey. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye now.